know, I had a family, or I have a family. I have 3 daughters, and that was probably the toughest part of the job, is being gone all the time. You're on the road. When I started, we didn't even have vacations, and I think, well, you only work 6 months a year. Why would you need a vacation? But we didn't have weekends off like you teachers, you know. So anyway, we're in New York, and Ralph Houk is the manager of the New York Yankees, and I'm working with the Hall of Famer, Nestor Shilak, and we're getting ready to work a Sunday afternoon game, fly back to Iowa so I can see my family. I'm going to Anaheim on Tuesday, and I'm going to have all day Monday at home, and we look forward to those days. So anyway, I'm working second base, and it's Vital Blue Day, and they're honoring Vital Blue, and if your last name is Blue, or you got a blue shirt on or something, you got a reduced price for your ticket. So they had a full house at Yankee Stadium. I was at second base, you know, that's the best place to be, at second base at Yankee Stadium, because they cannot throw bananas and those things that far. So anyway, I'm out there and thinking about going home and seeing my family, and next thing I know, the ball was hit the shortstop, and he flipped it over to Dick Green, and I called him out, and he threw to first base, and they called him out, and all of a sudden I hear all this screaming and yelling, and unbeknownst to me, Dick Green had dropped the ball at second base, and I didn't know it, and I called him out. We didn't have replays, we didn't have any way of getting out of it, you know, and none of the other umpires thought that they saw it well enough. And so Dick Hauser was a third base coach. He come running out, and we don't let them come running out on the field, otherwise they'd be out there all the time. And so I ejected him, and then I looked up, and Ralph Houk was standing about from here to this light, and he was running some names by me that I never heard in the Army, believe me. And so, of course, I ejected him, and Elston Howard had to literally come out and drag him off the field. And I'm thinking, boy, this is a great afternoon. But I still knew I was going to go home and see my family. So after the game is over, I had 4 ejections, and we always sit down and talk about those things, and how they happened and why they happened, and sometimes we get the replays, but because we were all catching a plane, we said, well, we'll go over it in Anaheim when we get out there. And so everybody left the dressing room, and we all got to LaGuardia and got our flights, and I'm flying to Minnesota and then down to Waterloo. And American League is really good. They let us fly first class and sit up front there, and you get a couple of libations, and you know, you never know who you're going to sit next to, you know. But this gentleman next to me was one of the finest guys I'd ever met, and he said he was just having a great day. And I said, oh, that's terrific, what'd you do? And he said, well, I mowed the lawn. He said, then I went in and watched the baseball game. And I started to think, well, maybe this is not where I want to go. And I said, oh, that's terrific. That's terrific. Yeah, he said they had the biggest argument you ever saw. I said, oh, did they? I said, well, tell me about it. He said, oh, you know, he said they dress up those, they get a guy off the road, put a uniform on him, and send him out to second base to umpire. He has no idea what he's doing. I said, at that time I had an all-star ring, and I just literally rolled it over on my finger. I didn't want him to read anything on it. And now we're in Chicago. We're getting off the plane, and I reached in my pocket, and I had a business card, and he was about 2 guys in front of me, and I tapped him on my shoulder and said, oh, by the way, it was a nice conversation. Here's my business card in case you ever get a chance to look me up. And he looked at that. He didn't move. And he started scratching his head. And he just turned around and walked away. Yeah, it's just like you don't go and get a haircut and tell everybody what you do for a living. Because it's not a wise idea, believe me. Well, I want to let you ask a couple questions if you have any. I could talk all night, but the best part of the job, I guess, is being able to meet the people that you run across throughout the United States and are associated with in the game. Majority are terrific people. I had a wonderful career. I couldn't have done any more than I can imagine. I was a crew chief for 23 years. It's something that you have to be selected by the league office, and so it was a great job. Now, let's talk about the World Series. I know all you Cardinal fans are just waiting to find out what happened. And those that don't know about the 1985 World Series, I was the umpire in chief, and I had to play at first base in the sixth game, and it was a play that I wish I could get back, or it's a play that I wish they had replay, but they didn't. I called a runner safe. He eventually did not score, but the Royals did score. The Kansas City Royals did score in that half inning and went ahead and tied up the series. So consequently, they had to go to the seventh game of the World Series, and now I would have to be the one behind the plate to officiate the seventh game. And it was very unpleasant to know, I didn't know, even when I came off the field, I didn't know I'd missed the play. And I got to the umpire room, and Peter Ubroff, the commissioner, was standing there, and I said, "Did I get the play right?" And he said, "No, you didn't." Well, that gives you really a sick feeling. I mean, there's no room for error in that job at that level. And that doesn't mean they're not made, because we're only human beings, and we're going to make mistakes. But and I made one, and it was what the Cardinals called a call that cheated them out of a World Series. I had probably over 200 letters from throughout the United States were Cardinal fans. I don't know if I got any Royal fan letters or not. I can't remember any. But and some of them were rather mean. And there is no retaliation when you get something in the mail. It is what it is, and if you choose to read it, go ahead. So anyway, now that was the sixth game, and now we're in the final game, and I'm behind the plate, and they're getting the Cardinals are getting beat by about 6 or 7 points, and they got a guy on the mound by the name of Joaquin Andahar, and I guess he didn't want to be there, because when I looked out after calling a pitch, he had both arms in the air, and we don't let them show us up. We just don't tolerate that by throwing their arms up in the air and discussing the pitch. So I headed to the mound. And about halfway out there, Whitey Herzog, the manager of the Cardinals, stopped me and said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going out to tell him if he puts his arms up one more time, he's gone." And he looked at me and he said, "If you got the play right last night, we wouldn't have to be here." And then I said, "If you guys were hitting better than 122, we wouldn't have to be here either." And then he called me something I can't tell you. But he was ejected. And so I said, "You got to go?" And he said, "Well, let me talk to Joaquin. He listens to me." So he went out and talked to Joaquin, and I don't know what he told him. But Joaquin threw another pitch, and he was ejected because he had his arms in the air again. So anyway, that's kind of the way it went. And then from that, I got all the letters, and then about 2 years after that World Series, I got a postcard that was never canceled. It was sent to my home in Waterloo, and it said, I know where you go and I know what you do, and when I point my .357 Magnum at you, I'll just blow you away. Now that's serious. And I went to the post office. I said, "Where'd this come from?" And they said, "We don't know because it wasn't canceled." I said, "Well, why isn't it canceled?" And they said, "Well, they don't cancel a lot of the postcards because you can't use them again. Because once you write on them and send them, that's as far as they go." I said, "Okay." So then I got a hold of baseball security, and they got a hold of the FBI, and 2 FBI agents came to my house and wanted to know if I had any correspondence from anybody that would match this postcard that by that time they had. And I said, "Oh, I don't know." He said, "Well, you do have some letters." I said, "I do." And I went on the garage and I got this big cardboard box and dropped it on the couch, and I said, "There you go." He said, "Oh, no." He said, "Do you have anybody that sticks out in your mind that you could say could have possibly done this?" And I said, "Well, there was a guy that owned a construction company down there that had called me on the phone, called me everything under the sun, and then he called me back and apologized and said he was sorry, and then he sent me a letter to tell me what a jerk I was." So I said, "He's one." And he said, "Well, you got those letters?" And so I gave them to him, and he looked at the letters and looked at his partner and said, "Okay, let's go." I said, "Wait a minute. How do you know that quickly who it is?" And he said, "Well, look at this, these letters." At that time I owned a restaurant in Waterloo, and he misspelled restaurant on all correspondence, including the postcard. He had misspelled it, and they knew right away who it was, and they went to St. Louis and knocked on his door and said, "If you bother down Denkinger anymore, you'll be in jail for a while." And I never heard from him since. So, but anyway, I'm going to let you ask a couple questions if you have any. Yes?
Who was your favorite player? Who would you give a lot of good calls to?
I got the first part, but I missed the second part.
Who did you maybe give a good call to every now and again?
Well, I don't think you can get very far if you gave calls away. There's a lot of ball players I really liked. I mean, they're gentlemen. I don't think I've ever worked a game in Kansas City that George Brett didn't come in the dressing room and say, "Who's my favorite umpire tonight?" It was always a guy behind the plate, He switched every night, but he was just a lot of fun to be around, and but to give him, he didn't need anything. I mean, this guy could hit. Rod Peru, unbelievable hitters. They could fall out of bed and hit singles at least. Any other questions? Yes.
Were you ever involved in any of the baseball strikes?
Yes, all of them. I think from the time that we got Richie Phillips, our attorney, and he was there, I was there his entire career as an attorney, and I think we were on 3 or 4 strikes, walkouts, because they didn't want to pay us. And they wanted to give the players more and more, and it got to a point where a player was sitting on a bench making $1 million, and the highest priced umpire was making $300. Now, I know he was a lot more valuable to them than I was, but still, we felt like we should have an equal share, percentage-wise. But the game's different now, completely different. Now they got instant replay. Nobody's going to make any mistakes. I don't know if that's good or bad. A lot of them say they don't like it anymore because they can't yell at the umpires. Because you go out there and if a manager wants to wants to have a review of the play, he wants to wait and make sure that his video man tells him whether he should have them redo the play, and what that does, it delays the game. They thought just because you got one time to complain about a play, and then they review it, that would be all they get. But that's all they're going to get for 6 innings, so they don't want to waste them and case, you know, that they'd be able to use it the first 6 innings. So I don't know, and now I don't even know what the play is at home plate, what they're trying to stay away from. I guess they're trying to stay away from people getting broken legs and what have you. But, that always seemed to be a big part of baseball, the collision at home plate. I've seen some good ones, some real good ones. Anyway, well, listen, thank you, good luck. I see all the students are going, that's good. I'm sure they're home in bed. Anyway, thank you very much.